Good evening, gentlemen, and a few of you ladies that may be listening. This is Spiritual Art of War, back at it again with another episode. And this time, we're going to talk about the damage that has been done in the modern, quote-unquote, dating market. As you know, I said it before, that dating is a modern concept, okay? It's something that really didn't happen hundreds of years ago. This is something that is really probably a form of, there's probably some aspect of Greco-Roman ancient society where women had a little bit more leeway to engage with men that they had romantic interest in. There was always a level of what you could say non-marital sexual intercourse in various spheres of different societies, some worse than others. And of course, those that probably had it more than others were more likely to fall apart, because you cannot hold together a civilization with loose sexual mores. It's just not possible. It's literally impossible to hold together a society when there's a bunch of free sexual access or sexual confusion. It's just not happening. And we see that with this society that's going on right now. In fact, much of the reason why America is even being held together is because the byproduct of this loose sexual or fluidity that's happening is because it's being the outcomes or the negative consequences is being stopped by the government, okay, through the printing of money, through the welfare state. That's what's kind of making it appear that it's not as bad as it is, because when these women are going out here and they're having these babies with random men, they already know that the government society is going to back them and treat them as victims rather than willing participants in what they have produced, which is a household or a broken home, because the home is not together. A home is really going to be centered on the men. Okay, that's why historically houses were reckoned after their fathers. So it's a broken home because the home is not held together. And in some instances, these women don't even know who the father is. Okay? So what happens is that usually what would occur without a welfare state is her close or nearest of kin would have to step in and help. And because they would now be forced to use their own, work, energy, their economic output to rear this child, this would make them punish or ostracize the woman who produced such outcome, because now you done laid an extra burden on the family, okay, or by extension the village. This is where black women especially use the village shaming on men to say the village is supposed to be responsible for raising the kids. So they believe that they can go out here and have sex with any Tom, Dick, and Harry that they want, produce children, bring them back to the village, and then you would then raise them. And if you actually do studies on matriarchal or societies, matrilineal societies, they're more likely to have men leave their societies for more patriarchal ones, okay? And this has historically been going on for aeons. Whenever a group of people go into being more of a matriarchy or matrilineal, those men, there's a subset of men that stay, but there's a large amount of men that are more motivated for something better that will leave, because they look at the aspect of what is in it for me. What does it look like if you're a man, and you're productive? You're going to utilize your body to protect, your energy to provide for your sisters, okay, and the woman in your community having babies by random men, and they want you to use your blood, sweat, and tears to help take care of those kids? Nah, buddy. Men are going to say, I'm checking out. So that would cause that particular group of people to fall apart. And the men that leave, they'll go elsewhere where they can be productive and where their work output can be better respected and utilized towards their own progeny. Okay? And this is the reason why there's such a big backlash against productive black men that are saying, hell no, we won't go. We're not doing this no more. And the women are shocked because why? A lot of the welfare benefits are going away. The jobs are going away. Things is getting more expensive, and these women are wanting men to continue this game. And guess what? There was a generation of men, especially after the civil rights movement, that were pushing, that were willing to do that. Because what was happening was, it was more of like gradualism, or what you would call the Overton window, where men were just doing it as it was happening, not realizing that it was that 2-3 generations later, it will become the predominant culture. So the first wave that did it, it was like, okay, she had some children, maybe her man might have died in a Vietnam War, or maybe he might have been strung out on drugs, but she was a good girl. So you step in because you always had a crush on her and you got this new job, and you can step in and be stepdaddy and do what the other man was not either capable or unwilling to do. And then what happened is the welfare state expanded. There became more women jumping into it as they saw what they felt were benefits. And then the society was changing to push liberalism to accept it and say this is actually normal and we shouldn't condemn these women or ostracize or shame these women. So then they said, oh, since y'all not shaming me, since this is not viewed as bad, let me go ahead and do it. And then women were able to gaslight men for a long time to say, well, look, y'all are just leaving. Y'all are not staying and taking care of these kids. Y'all are not being the fathers y'all supposed to be. Y'all are leaving. So men believed that for decades. They really believed for a long time. Men believed that the men were just leaving. Then it became a point where men were saying, hey, hold on, let's examine the kind of men that y'all were with. And then we said, well, look, it's the kind of men that y'all were with. And they said, no, those men changed. Those men were different. They were showing their good side, and then they switched on me when the baby was born. And men believe that. Then now men are like, no, we're seeing this stuff in real time because we're seeing social media. We're seeing who your baby daddy was. We're now able to see he was this guy that was tatted up on his face. He was gangbanging, dope dealing, robbing and mobbing. And now we're like, oh, that's who he is. You couldn't, because before a woman could just say it was whoever. They could even pin it on certain men because there was no paternity test. But thank God for Maury. Maury showed us the way of these women, and then we began to come to the conclusion that these women have been lying all along, and that they actually are attracted to these type of men, and they prefer to reproduce to these kind of men. And now we know, hey, we're gonna now make some changes in the way we're gonna behave and move with these women. And now the men are being vocal about it. They're warning other men. They're comparing notes, and they're coming to decisions where they're saying, this is what we're going to start pushing. We're going to start telling these women that they are no good, and that we're not going to be your Russell Wilson to your Sierra's prayer. And we're going to tell you that you're going to need to go back to your baby daddy. And we're going to basically do what we want to do, whether that's become passport bros, whether that's going outside of the community for better women that are more to our program. And we're going to let y'all rot in the bed that you made, because we didn't make it. And men are no longer feeling ashamed for saying no to being stepdads. Yes, was there a time when women were probably more appreciative? Sure. Now, today, no. And they even show it. Even the women that try and be like, not all of us are bad, I'm a single mother, when you start asking them questions, they show the reason why it's not a good idea. And you saw this with Kevin Samuels in the interviews that he had with these women, because they were early in the stage of the conversation. They would present themselves a certain way, and as he began to ask questions, they showed that they viewed you as someone that should do for them and do not for you. In fact, some of these women even said that they were done having children, but they wanted a man to step in and play stepdaddy. Okay? Some of these women were even going as far as to say that. To say, oh no, I don't want any more children. But even some of them were even saying that they didn't even want the man to even have any kids of his own. And we're standing on that, even with Kendra G. See, Kendra G was hating on Kevin Samuels all the time, but she literally took his whole format and made millions off of it now. She's probably approaching $1 million or more because she has a whole app. She has a bunch of views. She's making also a lot of money off the Instagram and YouTube reels as well. So now you got people that were hating on Kevin Samuels for those exposure of the modern woman. Now they're backdooring. Even the likes of Angry Man is saying that, oh, he gave him the game, the blueprint and all that stuff. No, you didn't, bro. You was sitting there doing monologues, ranting about women. You wasn't interviewing women one-on-one. You wasn't doing that. And then you wasn't even coming with the information. A lot of these guys are not even nuanced to even bring statistics into the foray. They're not doing that. You have a lot of guys that are doing more talking from an anecdotal perspective, but not many men were coming with, statistics and then real-time interviews. Those are really the two things that really hit the nail in the coffin for these modern women, especially the black woman. Okay, because there's only a minority of them that actually think on a level of being more traditional. It's a small minority of them. Okay? It's really a dying breed when it comes to that type of woman. So we have to understand that, this is all what these women have created in this market. And a lot of these women, one thing they don't understand that the negative behavior that they did out there, it comes around full circle, and men hear from other men. This is one of the reasons why women don't like when men talk together about their exes, about women that they had bad experiences with. They hate when they see a group of men getting on a podcast and talking about these things, and other men saying, I went through that too, and men realizing that they're going through some of the same experiences, or even worse is the men that get played and the men that are part of that, meaning the men that didn't realize what it was like to be the guy that was the side dude, the guy that a woman is with on the side while she's married to the guy that she really doesn't want to be with. That was happening a lot. And men that were players are like, yeah, this is what's happening. I'm not, they talk about how they knocking dudes' girlfriends and wives down. Okay, you got like a dude like MJ Getright. MJ Getright is one of those guys who, is able to get a lot of women. He talks about the fact that when he goes out, a lot of these women be married, engaged, and, they be in relationships. And some men, they'll turn down such women when they have the information handy. They'll say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. But sometimes these men don't have the information, and they get with these women, and then they later find out, Instagram pop up or social media account pop up, and this girl's engaged, got a whole husband and everything. And he's like, dang. Slim Thug talked about it too. These women talking about, oh, why don't you want to get married? Well, he said that, why would he want to get married when he's knocked down so many dudes' wives? I mean, see, the women don't understand that these behaviors that they don't check among themselves because they're unwilling. See, the only time a woman gets on another woman is when that woman is her rival. That's when she starts saying, oh, you a hoe, you this, you that. That's the only time. They do not do anything from a preventative measure standpoint or a course correction standpoint and say, hey, we need to start moving as, women that are doing the right thing. They cannot do that because women are not ones that can change the moral standing of another woman. They're because they have no means to even think about it, plan it out, and even find out ways to punish bad behavior because they don't know what bad behavior is, because anything that is bad behavior is based on their own feelings. Same thing with good behavior. That's the reason why you got women out here, they'll applaud a woman divorcing her husband just because she's bored. Because in their mind, if you're bored and you don't like your husband anymore, then leave him, that's good. So that's good behavior to them. It's not considered bad because feelings dictate what is good or bad to them. So this is the reason why a woman can't collectively get together and say, yo, the way we're moving out here, this is the reason why the men don't want to talk to us. They're not able to do that. They're not able to sit down. They're not able to collectively say, that's why you're not even seeing a podcast. You're not going to see a podcast of 8 to 10 women getting together and saying how they need to move for the sake of men to have quote unquote faith or belief in them as a woman in their generation. They don't have that. They don't have that conversation. That conversation don't exist. That conversation don't exist to them. They're going to be like, nah, we're going to continue doing what we're going to do, what's in the best interest of us. And when we do what we do, it's going to work out to our benefit. And when it works out to our benefit, we're going to get what we want. We're going to get the men that we want. And this is not happening. They're all speaking in fantasy. They're all fantasizing about the life that they hope to live one day, which they're not, because they're not calculating exactly what's going on and what they've done. And you know what's crazy? You will have men that are the playboys, and they'll come to the conclusion that they've messed up certain women. They'll at least admit that. They're more likely to admit, you know what? They'll admit that they played certain women, that they broke their heart, that they did them dirty. Some of these men will even hit these women up and apologize years later and say, you know what? How I did you was wrong. You know, you deserve better. They'll have those conversations. These women ain't having them type of conversations with the guys they screwed over. They're not. They're justifying themselves because they don't feel guilty. They're not having those conversations saying, hey, let me call this man that I was supposed to marry, that I left him. I abruptly just left him and ghosted him, and then I acted like nothing happened. I talked shit about him. I said he was whack, he was this, he was that. You know that what the story really was. Or the husband that you filed divorce against, and you know he was busting his ass, but you really used him because he had a good job and he was willing to take you in even though you was a hoe. You're not going to tell him that, you know, you lost respect for him because you didn't think that he was the kind of guy that you were meant to be with, or you really don't want to tell the truth that really what it was is that you didn't value yourself because you knew that you was a hoe, you knew that you was a freakazoid that didn't really want to be married, but you were trying to be married for the sake of validation among your peers. And because you did that, because you wanted the validation, you were just using him for a short period of time, only to revert back to what you really were all along. You didn't want to admit that. You're just going to gaslight him, say that he was whack, he was a bad person, or he was this, that, and the other. And then when he gets going, moving on with his life, he's going to figure out things, and then you're going to look back and say, damn, you're going to realize that you should have, the whole time, that you should have done what was right by not even getting into that relationship to begin with. But you used him as a parasite, okay, to its host, to get what you want, and then you moved on, okay? So that's what's going on, but these women, they don't want to admit this, and that's why the market for the men that they want is only going to continue to get worse, because so many men are retreating. You know, what women don't understand about men is that men, when they get information in the environment that's going to be best for their survival, they will do the analysis. If they are wondering what they're interpreting, they will talk, they will seek out the information, and then they will come to the conclusion that they need to retreat back into their, you know, man caves, into their shelter, and say, let me fall back and regroup. At the bare minimum, they're going to fall back and regroup. They may get back out there, but they're going to regroup and assess the environment first. Then they're going to go get the tools that they need to be successful in that environment if they want to play that game. Or they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to play this game in this environment, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to another environment where I can get what I want. And I'm telling you, it really does not cost that much money for a man to rebuild his life in a country overseas. It just really doesn't. It really doesn't. If a man really sat back and said, look, go on a 3 to 5 year plan, he could decide to get rid of certain things. Let's say he got a car note. He can decide, you know what, let me not have a car note. Let me stack my bread. Let me do some investments. Let me not eat out all the time. Let me not take females out on dates over here in this side of the world. In 3 to 4 years, I'll be out stacked up with a certain amount of money, and I can literally rebuild my life in a whole other country. And you have men that are doing this at younger ages, bruh. Like I was shocked to see some men passport broing, guys that basically appear like women would think. You would think they would like them. These guys were ready looking to rebuild their lives overseas, and they were like in their early to mid 20s. People thought that it was only older men that were going overseas to find greener pastures. Nah, man, it's younger men that are done with the market over here. You know? And when you look at Gen Z, I think only 1 to 2% of the wealth is in the hands of Gen Z. Gen Z, I think the oldest age of Gen Z is like 28 years old. You know? So the money is not here like that, but the money can transfer over better in another country. Okay? And men are looking at that as options. That's why Passport Bros is being such a talked about thing, because Austin Holloman was a young guy. That's why these women were shocked. I forgot who he interviewed. He interviewed one of these ladies. She's like middle-aged, light-skinned chick. I forgot her name. Melissa King or something like that. She interviewed him about the passport thing and she couldn't believe it because he's young. She was like, why would you leave at this age? Like that, she's in her mind, she's thinking Passport Bros is only supposed to be for older men. But Austin Holloman was like the first guy that really showed you that, listen, a young man can go out and Passport Bro. And then showed you, went to different countries, showed you literally, now he's settled out in Kenya. He made that his home base. And people were like, damn, it's actually working. So that's all just showing somebody that it can be done is making more men consider those things as options. And these women, they're not going to understand it because there's no place for an American woman, American born and bred woman to go where men will prefer them over other women. It's just not happening. There's nowhere where they have an advantage. The only advantage an American woman has, truth be told, is her ability to get a man a green card or ability to be a sugar mama with her American dollars being more valuable overseas. Outside of that, these women are not valuable from a standpoint of a traditional woman. They're the least valuable when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? And that's where these women don't have an actual, they don't have that advantage, and it upsets them. It upsets them that advantage does not work for them. They can't even go to a country where men are richer that they will select them. They can't go to Switzerland. They can't go to Dubai and get those outcomes where they can get a marriage from a rich man or men that are worth more than the average American man, and they're going to choose them. It doesn't make sense. That's the reason why over there in Dubai, they treat American women like trash. Yeah, they'll give them some money to treat them like trash. Like that's how low they value them, bro. Like like we don't even value you enough to be a wife. We're just gonna use you like a toilet. You know, making these women do things with animals and stuff, bro. Yes, this is really happening in these places for their own amusement, bro. That's how they look at women, the American woman. But when American men pull up to these other countries, they elevate to the level of like a prince, man. You know what I'm saying? A lord, Lord Stanley, Duke of Earl. You know what I'm saying? They automatically shoot up to a level of nobility with that blue passport, and that's all orchestrated. You know, we're under a monopoly system. You know, with this petrodollar, this U.S. currency. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it is kind of like a made up value, but in modern times, it works nonetheless. You know what I'm saying? So let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next episode.